Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack the biological and evolutionary roots of what women actually look for in a long-term mate. It's one of those topics that constantly sparks debate. But today, we're totally bypassing the opinions. We're going straight to the scientific data to really understand the ancient survival pressures that essentially forged modern desire.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The roots of mate choice. 2. The quest for resources. 3. Protection, health, and commitment. 4. Do context and wealth matter? And finally, 5. How preferences shape behavior. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The roots of mate choice.
It's literally the ultimate question, isn't it? What do women actually want? Are modern dating preferences just, cultural constructs shaped entirely by movies and social media? Or are they ancient survival tools passed down through millennia of evolution? Well, to figure that out, we have to look back at how selection actually works in nature. Take the female African village weaver bird, for example. This is wild. Before she ever even thinks about committing to a mate, she strictly selects from males who can build superior nests. She'll literally spend up to 10 minutes actively poking, pulling, and testing a male's newly constructed nest. And if it doesn't meet her exact standards, she just flies away. She does this to protect and provide for her chicks. Her preference isn't just random, it's an absolutely critical evolutionary adaptation that gives her offspring a massive survival advantage over birds that just, mate randomly.
To really understand why the female is almost always the choosier sex in nature, we have to go right down to baseline biology. At the purest level, males and females are defined by gamete size, and that sets the stage for a huge imbalance in reproductive energy. Think about it. Men produce millions of small, highly mobile sperm, replenished at roughly 12 million per hour. Women, on the other hand, produce a large, stationary, and strictly fixed lifetime supply of eggs. From the very moment of conception, the biological investment is just dramatically unequal.
And this perfectly tees up Robert Trivers's famous parental investment theory, because human females have an obligatory 9-month investment, which is then followed by years of heavy lactation and care. Indiscriminate mating led to severe survival costs. The general rule of thumb in evolutionary biology is super simple. The sex investing the most biological energy into the offspring is basically forced to be the most discriminating and selective. For an ancestral woman, a poor mating choice didn't just mean a bad date, it meant her child might actually not survive.
Moving right along to Section 2, the quest for resources. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but isn't this just a modern Western thing? Well, to prove it's not, we can look at the largest database of human mating preferences ever accumulated. This massive 37-culture study sampled over 10,000 individuals across 6 continents and 5 islands. We are talking about wildly diverse populations here, from coast-dwelling Australians and urban Brazilians all the way to South African Zulus. The whole goal was to definitively see if certain mating preferences are universally hardwired across the human species. And the data? It completely speaks for itself. Regardless of mating systems, race, religion, or political structures, even in strictly communist and socialist countries, women worldwide value good financial prospects in a marriage partner roughly twice as much as men do. The women alive today are the direct descendants of a long, unbroken line of ancestors who specifically selected men with the ability to provide. That preference directly solved the ultimate human puzzle, survival.
But hey, it's not just about cash in the bank, right? Especially since money's a pretty recent human invention anyway. Across the board, women prioritize high social status. Historically, status is a universal cue that trickles down to better food, abundant territory, and superior health care for children. Whether we're talking about a traditional hunter-gatherer society or a modern corporate hierarchy, a man's social status is a really reliable indicator of his overall ability to secure and control those essential resources.
And this quest for resources is intimately tied to the clock. Across all 37 cultures studied, women consistently prefer men who are roughly 3.5 years older. If you look through an ancestral lens, this makes total sense. In traditional societies, older age meant a man had more time to build critical social alliances and perfect his hunting prowess. And honestly, even today, income and social status generally increase as a man gets older, making age a highly reliable proxy for resource accumulation.
Which brings us to Section 3, protection, health, and commitment. Because let's be real, a wealthy mate is absolutely useless if he's dangerous, diseased, or just abandons the family. That's where evolutionary deal breakers come into play, essentially acting as a biological shield. For instance,
Feeling visceral disgust at poor hygiene or a bad smell, that protects against dangerous pathogen transmission. Incest avoidance, which is driven by genuine biological disgust at the thought of romantic involvement with a sibling, protects against inbreeding and severe genetic depression. These aren't just picky modern preferences. They are powerful, hardwired survival mechanisms.
What's incredibly fascinating is that the data even shows nuanced individual differences within non-heterosexual orientations. Research indicates that butch and femme aren't just arbitrary cultural labels. They actually reflect genuine hormonal and psychological variations. Butch lesbians tend to have higher testosterone levels, display more masculine traits, and report less desire for children. Conversely, femme lesbians place a much greater importance on a partner's financial resources, which closely mirrors the evolutionary preferences of heterosexual women. It perfectly highlights the deeply biological underpinning of all human attraction.
Now, since things like commitment and protection can't exactly be observed directly, women look for distinct physical and behavioral cues. A man's height, a V-shaped torso, and hand grip strength are all ancestral cues for physical formidability, meaning the literal ability to protect against physical threats. Behaviorally, emotional stability and dependability are highly prized because erratic men just drain precious resources. Interestingly enough, studies show women find men significantly more attractive as long-term mates when they're happily interacting with an infant. It signals a direct, observable willingness to commit and invest in children.
All right, Section 4. Do context and wealth matter? So, this brings up a huge societal debate. What happens if women already have the wealth and the power? The structural powerlessness hypothesis is this popular theory claiming that women only want resources because the patriarchy systematically excludes them from power. The theory logically suggests that as women gain economic equality, their preference for wealthy men should just completely disappear. But does it? The global data tells a vastly different story.
It turns out, having personal economic control does not just override millions of years of biology. Look at the Bakwere tribe in Cameroon. These women actually hold greater personal and economic power than men, yet they still frequently divorce husbands who fail to provide sufficient economic support. And we see the exact same phenomenon in modern U.S. professionals. Financially successful women, like your doctors and lawyers, actually demand mates with even higher incomes and professional degrees than less successful women do. Wealth doesn't diminish the preference at all. It actually amplifies it.
And finally, Section 5. How preferences shape behavior. For evolutionary preferences to really matter, they have to literally shape the competition. When a man is primed with just the mere exposure to an attractive woman, this crazy psychological cascade happens in his brain. Psychological studies reveal that men who simply viewed images of attractive women suddenly rated having a large income as vastly more important. They physically felt more ambitious. They even actively altered their self-descriptions to sound more professionally successful. The male brain rapidly shifts to value and display exactly what women want.
Because of these specific female preferences, men are basically forced to compete on those exact battlegrounds. This is why you see conspicuous male mating tactics in action all the time. Flashing cash, demonstrating risk-taking, driving expensive sports cars. It's exactly why men are statistically much more likely to exaggerate their income or, lie about their height on dating apps. Sometimes they even derogate rivals by calling them poor or lazy. They are unconsciously trying to embody those ancestral cues of resource acquisition and physical protection that women's brains are just hardwired to seek. So, here is the big, crucial takeaway for you. Our modern dating world of speed dating and apps might feel totally new, but the software running in our brains, it is incredibly ancient. When you look at a profile, or when you're swiping right tonight, are you making a truly modern choice, or are you simply answering the ancient, undeniable survival demands of your ancestors? It's definitely a fascinating thought to leave you with. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.